Hey guys, this is Cranetrain. So for today I really want to discuss unwrapped versus wrapped prizes. What I mean by this is anything that's in a packaging of some sort, such as plastic wrap, saran wrap, so on and so forth, versus things that are not. And the differences in how you should approach these prizes. There's a lot of factors that really go into this. The first one I want to talk about is prize shape. So with prize shape, it can be both wrapped and unwrapped. Basically, when it's unwrapped, you're looking for any kind of protrusion on the prize, such as the new Ditto that recently came out has one quote-unquote hand that sticks out a little bit more that you can use to kind of get more leverage. Same with some of the other prizes like Gengar, as you've seen in the past that I've won. Gengar has its horns, which makes it a lot easier to grab onto. Even though it is a rounder prize. Whereas when it's in a plastic wrap, your typical shape is going to be usually a rectangular shape or square shape. Exceptions to this is if it's wrapped in saran wrap. That means it's going to more closely follow its actual original shape, but usually a little bit more tightly packed. Both have their advantages and their disadvantages, and both saran and plastic wraps have different advantages to each other versus disadvantages to each other. So there's so many factors to go over. Another major factor you guys want to contemplate is prize material. Generally speaking, the average material is something I would compare to pretty much majority of what the Pokemon are made out of. It's a slightly stiffer, not super soft, but fairly soft type fabric. Whereas you've got mink, which is a lot softer of a fabric, so there's a lot more give into it, and it tends to be a little bit more slick, so it's a little bit harder for the claw to grab, whereas the average fabric is a lot easier to do something with. It has a little bit more grip to it. And then mochi, which gives a lot because it's stretchy, it's soft, it's springy, and it's usually filled with that microfiber balls. It's definitely probably the more difficult of the prizes to go after, if for no other reason than the claws do not want to grab it. Now, there can be ways that can be improved, such as angle on the claw tip and so on and so forth, but generally speaking, mochi is going to be your more difficult prize to go after because of the material. So if you see it just kind of sliding off of the claw itself, this may be mink or mochi type material, which is great for the prize itself, but it's definitely more difficult to try and win. So I highly recommend trying to watch replays of people, trying to win it, or watch other players play. Another big thing is like the prize size. If it's a big prize or if it's a little prize, typically if it's a littler prize and it's in a plastic wrap, it's going to stick a little bit more to those double-sided sticky tape bars, but it's going to be easier to lift. Especially if it's in that really like stiffer kind of plastic wrap that's kind of like a sealed envelope of plastic, vice the kind of more Ziploc bag style plastic where it's just kind of like soft and moldable and movable. And then you've also got saran wrap, which can have all kinds of protrusions on it where it was badly wrapped or something along those lines that it can get caught on. Not to mention that you can get the claw tip dug into some of these plastic wraps to actually aid you. Another big factor that I want to talk about is claw arm size. So if it's a smaller prize and they're using their standard arms, sometimes you can use that as a point of leverage if the claw goes down far enough. What can happen is the claw corners, or the arm, when it closes, the corners of the package will actually rest against the claw arm itself, basically giving it additional leverage to stay onto the claw itself for additional lift. Sometimes even going all the way back to the drop-off point. As far as some of the bigger prizes, that could be an advantage, especially when it comes to things that are like, I don't know, some of the 40 centimeter or bigger prizes. It can definitely help when it comes to the prize resting against the arms. but it has to have enough arm strength closing to actually be worth it. So arm strength is probably going to be one of your bigger things that you consider when you're trying to approach a prize itself. But it's not always about the lift, as we've all seen. Sometimes it's about the push, sometimes it's about the closing action for the scoot, sometimes it's a number of factors. So just so many things to consider. It's definitely best to watch other players play prior to attempting it yourself, or using the prize watcher replays to actually see how other people have won prizes. This can get a little bit off-putting when it gets to things such as new prizes, because no one wants to waste their money, obviously. But there's always, that desire to be one of the first people to get that prize. Another major thing is the closing arm strength. So when the arm closes, does it have the strength to actually move the prize to the side? Is it going to scoot it along? I use this method to win tons of Kirby's personally. Another major factor is, does the tip shape help you in any way when it comes to the prize? So there's the long, thin tips that are very common on Torba, and then you get the fatter teardrop shape ones. Sometimes you can get those lodged in between the bars on the prize to actually aid you in moving it, because the raising strength of the claw is always going to be the strongest aspect of the claw itself. So it's always going to want to try and return to its original position. That's just the way it is. Another thing that you want to take into account is the tip angle. Is one of the tips more angled than the other? One might be meant more for pushing, whereas the other one is meant more for, scooting or lifting. It's all a matter of just analyzing the actual crane itself. There's always going to be that one claw that's going to be weak, or a lot of claws lately, especially with Torba. Hopefully they start going back to their older ways. I'd love to see Torba go back to about how it was 6 months ago or so. It seems like this past few months they've been really, for lack of a better term, greedy in the aspect of how they've got their machines set up. I hope that we'll see a return of how claw games used to be with them. And then the last thing I want to talk about is table configurations. There's so many different configurations, but the most common, especially when it comes to prizes such as plushies, is going to be the 2 bars or the V bar, and then the slanted platform. These are the most common configurations that I've found for plushies in general. There are other configurations such as the middle platform with the bars on the side, so on and so forth, or the shelves that are at an angle on the side for the middle platform. But I'll have to cover that in a little bit of a different video, because there's a lot of aspects to that middle platform configuration. So continuing on, we're just going to go ahead and show you guys some of the replays of how I won some unwrapped prizes versus some wrapped prizes. And we'll talk about the different points in how I won these and what my thought process was for this. Alright, so first thing we're going to talk about is an unwrapped prize. It's going to be the new Ditto. I know a lot of people were having issues with this, and I'm sorry that I didn't get this video out sooner. But the biggest thing with the new Ditto is the fact that its arm sticks out, allowing you a lot of leverage in regards to moving it to one side. The problem with this one is even if you can do this, sometimes you'll get it too far to the left and you won't be able to do anything with it after a certain point. I managed to get this one after almost flipping it all the way over and then pushing it through the bars, but that being said, it was definitely not an easy win. But it does show that, an unwrapped prize has certain advantages over a wrapped prize. Some have that hole in them where the hand is stitched together so that you can get the crane arms lodged in between the arm and the prize of the body, and use that as a whole leverage point to lift it all the way back to the original position. So definitely a lot of goods and bads to unwrapped prizes. They sometimes stick to the bars a little bit more than you would think, but overall not too bad. And then like things with the Gengar, it's a lot easier to like scoot them over to the side, use the horns to lift them, lodge your arms into the arms of the prize, find little exploits and stuff like that. Also, with it not being in a plastic wrap, there's no defined shape, so this could be both an advantage and a disadvantage. See, as I can pull the leg here, that's an advantage, but a disadvantage is I ended up at one point with one of the Gengars actually having the tail and the foot caught on the bar, making it very difficult since if the claw didn't go down far enough, it wasn't very nice. Very nice, though, in the aspect of having a strong claw is a big key when it comes to an unwrapped prize, whereas with a plastic wrap prize, sometimes you can do stuff even if the claw is fairly weak. So, but definitely I would say more of a requirement that you have a strong crane when it comes to unwrapped prizes, at least as far as lifting is concerned. So, if it's scooting or something else, there's other aspects that are to be considered. So and it never hurts to really think about the fact that some prizes are meant to be pushed rather than lifted, or scooted rather than lifted. There's all kinds of exploits like hooking in the arm, as I just did, and so on and so forth. It definitely helps to really think outside the box with an unwrapped prize. With a wrapped prize, though, there are certain advantages. If you can get a large rectangular prize at an angle, you can do what I just did and actually push the prize backwards, making use of the fact that the claw doesn't error out on Torba. If you do this on any of the other catchers, such as iCatch or DC7, this may not work for you. Specifically because of how Torba has their cranes set up to avoid error codes. And then there's always the popular trick of, if it's at a raised angle, letting the claw return to its original position and push the prize back along the way. So, with smaller prizes such as the Nifflers, while the prize itself is an odd shape, the packaging is squared, making it a lot easier to approach this, and also a lot easier to get it stuck in the standard size arms because the claw was decently strong. It could actually do a lot more with that plastic. And since it's also that stiffer plastic, vice the plastic that was on the Care Bear cushion, it has a lot more leverage points available to it. Keep in mind, though, you are going to run into certain difficulties no matter what kind of configuration there is. Sometimes there's just going to be a lot of problems either trying to push something after it gets at a certain angle, or trying to lift it because either the plastic gets wrapped around the bar or it's too far down and the crane doesn't go far enough down. It's always good to keep in mind how to approach different aspects of a claw. If one thing isn't working, don't sit there and continuously try the same thing. Switch it up, try pushing it, try scooting it, attack the corners, attack the middle, attack, one side, front or back, offset the crane. Don't just sit there and try the exact same thing every time. As you'll see with a lot of my wins, I do not use the same exact tactic every time, even though for the most part I can fairly replicate my ability to do these. I'm always trying to think of different ways to attack a prize. It makes it a lot easier to deal with newer prizes when it comes to that. Also, another thing I want to tell you guys is I'm going to be extending the April giveaway for another week. So I'll pick the prize winner on the 7th of May. The reason I'm doing this is because of Golden Week here in Japan. So a lot of people may be a little bit delayed, and I'd like to see if there's a little bit more of a response on some of my other videos. So I'd love for you guys to participate in this April giveaway. I'll be giving away a thing of Easter chocolates as well as a chax GP bunny. The one that I have featured here in this picture. And possibly a mystery prize as well. So, hope you guys enter. All you have to do is go to the video link at the end here and leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe. That's all you have to do. And I'll see you guys next time on Cranetrain.